So this video is a brief introduction, explanation, and then practice surrounding the breath, or pranayama as it's called in the context of our yoga practice. I'll be talking a little bit about how the breath functions in the body, why it's important initially, but if you want to skip ahead through that, if you're repeating this video maybe, you can go right to the breath practice toward the end. So, breath, why is it important? That should be pretty obvious, right? I mean, it keeps us alive, and yet it's something that is so easy for us to overlook or to discount as how important it is. I know for myself as a student and a teacher, I can so easily forget to leave room for the breath, to slow down, and really that's part of its value, is that listening to our breath attention, breath practice is an invitation for us to slow down and really listen to what's happening in our bodies. Breath is a tool that we use to connect to the present moment. And breath is also a really useful tool to regulate our nervous system, to shift us out of that sympathetic fight, flight, freeze response when we're kind of stressed out or rising to meet a challenge, that kind of frenetic place, which can be great. That's where we create strength and resilience. But part of that is knowing how to switch to the parasympathetic mode of rest, digest, absorb, and kind of come back into this deep, nourishing, restful space. We need both. They each have their own place, and the breath is a really useful tool, again, to navigate between those two states of when we're active and pumped up and the breath is moving quickly, and then when we're slow and deeply restful. I like to think of it as akin to, like, how would your car function if you always had your foot jammed on the gas? You'd grind your gears into the ground and run everything into the floor. So we can think of our bodies this way too. Breath work, meditation, restorative practices are also useful for bringing us into that restful, deeply peaceful state. So all that said, I completely understand feeling distracted or bored, or like you just don't want to do breath work, and I would encourage you to entertain the idea that if you do feel that resistance, it might mean that you need to practice the breath all the more. And again, I include myself in that. So I just welcome you to approach this practice with a really open mind, to be gentle with yourself if you do feel that resistance, and to try and stick with it. That said, it's cool if you want to stop this video halfway through. No big deal, okay? So some key things to understand physiologically and anatomically with the breath. So I'm touching my belly here. So often we hold tension and a lot of sensitivity in our belly. We kind of clench and restrict, and being able to relax those tissues is really key to taking a full deep breath. So with your hands on your belly even, you can take a moment to feel. You can exhale. Now with every inhale, there's an opening and expanding quality that's happening as your diaphragm, this muscle up at the top of your rib cage, pushes down and your abdominal organs go out. And then as you exhale, that kind of pulls back in, the diaphragm sucks back up into the rib cage, and the abdominal organs move toward the center of the body. So it's this 360-degree expansion and contraction. It's very much like a wave, that ebb and flow. And there's even a little pause. See if you can find it at the very top of your inhale. There's a bit of suspension. And then at the very bottom of your exhale, there's this completely emptied out silent space. Kind of like a pendulum swinging. That moment of pause, and then pulling back in. Okay. So one thing to keep in mind here is that we are trying to focus much of our breath into the belly. These are where our primary breathing muscles are located. When we're deeply restful, we breathe primarily using our diaphragm. When we get stressed out, however, our secondary breathing muscles, all up in the chest, the neck, even in the back, the upper back, those start to turn on as well to help us draw in more oxygen. So when we're trying to cue ourselves into a restful state, it really benefits us to try and relax that area to not chest breathe quite as much, but to try and belly breathe. And I know that can feel funny or unnatural, and it can take some time. So as much as possible, again, just be gentle. Try not to force it. And I'll say here too, before we get going in our practice, that if breath work makes you feel anxious, if it makes you feel lightheaded, these are all really common, very natural responses. You can take a break. You can do something else. Breath doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all. It's a good thing to be aware of, but don't get too bent out of shape if it doesn't work for you. Okay. So I'll take you through a round of breath called Nadi Shodhana. That's a Sanskrit term for alternate nostril breath, and it's actually one of my favorites for a couple reasons. There's this tactile quality of using your hand to close off one nostril and the other, kind of shakes you out of your usual breath pattern. You can hear the breath a little more easily, so there's that auditory feedback as well. And then there's this, really soothing rhythm that comes when you're switching and when you start to get into a mode with it. Hopefully you'll experience that as we go through. I will be cueing us as we go through it, but feel free to kind of go off on your own and do your own thing. So let's just start here. You'll set up your hand. You'll be using your right thumb to close off your right side nostril. You'll hear me talk kind of funny. And your right ring finger to close off your left side, and we'll be switching. You can use these first two fingers in your third eye. That doesn't really work for me, so I just tuck them in toward my palm. Okay. Let's just start by exhaling fully, so just let your air go, your breath go rather. Let's take the right thumb to the right nostril and inhale through the left. Now you're going to pause, plug up both, and exhale out the right. Inhale right. Pause, hold both. Exhale left. You might notice one side is clearer. Go ahead and breathe in. Pause and switch as you exhale. Breathing in. Pause and switch as you exhale. And see if you can slow it down on your own. Following your own rhythm of breath closely. Relaxing all the muscles in the face, the jaw. Relaxing the muscles in the neck and the shoulders, letting them go. Dropping in just a few more rounds. Noticing the metronome of your breath start to even and smooth out, perhaps. Noticing how the body responds to your breath. Take one more round each side, so you're inhaling through right and left. Completed those cycles. Just rest your hands in your lap. Maybe drop your gaze or close your eyes. A brief scan of your state, physically, mentally, emotionally. No expectation, no judgment, but noticing if anything has shifted. And several moments to recalibrate, revitalize after that breath practice. Know that this practice is available to you at any time. If you have a spare couple of moments, you can check in and If you don't want to do this breath practice specifically, you can just stop and notice the breath. It really can be so small. If you like here, you can bring your palms together over your heart and bow your chin toward your chest. A simple moment of sincere acknowledgement and gratitude to yourself in this practice and to each other for holding this space together. From my heart to yours, namaste. I hope you enjoy.